to you. Maybe you would like to talk about a little bit about yourself, how you came into this industry and what you have done so far.
Okay. Thanks, Frank. First of all, thanks, Frank, for having me on to do this lecture. I'm new to Zoom lectures, everybody. I've been doing lectures for over 24 years, but they've all been live. Just a little bit about my background. I am very passionate about health and wellness, as is Frank. I started 40 years ago teaching group fitness and doing personal training. And my passion for fitness led me to go back to school for a second career to do physical therapy. So I worked for a large hospital system for over 24 years. Part of that hospital system, we had 4 fitness facilities. And besides performing physical therapy for orthopedic outpatient facility, I also was involved with co-coordinating all their group fitness programs. We had over 50 instructors at that point. And since our gyms were hospital-based, we were very particular about safety. We had exercise physiologists on staff. Those particular formats are kind of dinosaurs. You really don't see that anymore. So I had the luxury of actually being involved in that kind of an organization. Also part of my job was I was a wellness coordinator. So I worked as a liaison between our fitness and our rehab. So when people got done with their rehab, they needed an avenue to go. A lot of people weren't comfortable in a gym. So we would set up particular programming for them. And I was involved in a lot of group fitness classes or programming that was suitable for all different types of dysfunctions, whether it was arthritis, whether it was osteoporosis, whether it was maybe a senior fitness class, MS programs. We had a huge Parkinson's program. And I kind of, basically orchestrated a lot of these services for different populations. The other hat I wore as far as being involved in that hospital system was I would go out into the community, do a lot of lectures on all different dysfunctions. Probably one of my most popular lecture was balance, because as we well know, we're going to talk a little bit about this, as we age, balance becomes a huge deficit, and it's the leading cause of accidental death today. So that lecture was very popular, and really my initiative was to educate people so they could make informative decisions in their healthcare. So I have since retired last year. I moved from New Jersey to here I am in South Carolina, and unfortunately the world closed down. So I discovered Zoom, and I was able to get a lot of my old training sessions back on Zoom. So I do training probably once a week. No, actually I do training, every day. I have some kind of training client. I also do a couple of Zoom classes a week. Age population between 40, 75. So I'm really good at putting programs together for people with all different types of either dysfunctions, either orthopedically or comorbidities. And so that's where I shine. I designed a number of classes when I did teach group fitness in a large gym. That was actually, and we're going to go through some demos just so you can see exactly what I'm talking about as far as more functionality with your workout. So that being said, I want to thank everybody else out there. I actually want to applaud all of you attendees here for signing up with Frank and making a big change in your health and well-being by just getting on board with a healthy diet and changing your nutrition. That's huge, especially in today's world. So that being said, this is where fitness really augments the nutrition and the diet. And I think a lot of you have come onto the program with Frank initially more for, wanting to lose weight, okay? Haven't been happy with where you've been in your life with that weight gain. And maybe you were born with a lot of this extra weight. So if you haven't been really embracing an exercise program, I hope at the end of this lecture, I can empower you to adapt it to your lifestyle, okay? So we're going to get started. I have a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm going to be kind of popping back and forth between live. You will see me small, but every once in a while I'm going to kind of interact. My goal always has been, when I did a lecture live, was to make sure my attendees weren't falling asleep, right? Or make sure my attendees weren't on their cell phone texting one another, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a real challenge to keep your attention here on Zoom. So that's going to be my challenge for the evening. And your challenge is just to sit back, kind of relax, and hopefully gain some knowledge that maybe you don't know. Okay. So let's get started.
I would just wanted to mention one more time. We just got a few participants in.
Okay.
Just wanted to let everyone know we have Natalie Billie here. She's our monthly guest speaker. She's fitness and wellness coach, and a lot more than this. She will explain it to you in a minute, but I just wanted to let everyone know, if you have any questions, we're gonna make some time in between. If you want, you can put your questions in the chat and I will look for them. So, but we will have time for them, you know, in between. Thank you so much. And Natalie, go ahead.
And on that note, Frank, I just want to also mention that in the beginning, I will be asking a lot of questions. Some may just be give me a Y and give me an N, just so I can see some of your standings. Others will be, in the first few slides, you'll understand. But as I go through the lecture, you'll find that maybe I will wind up answering some of your questions. So again, if you want to hold some of them, I'll try to be as interactive as possible. If you want a copy of this lecture, my contact information is at the very end of the slide. So you can definitely email me and I can send you this presentation. Okay, so you don't have to sit here and take notes. Wonderful. All right, so we're going to get going here.
Nice.
Okay, so again, we're going to talk about benefits of exercise. And I'm sure a lot of you already know a lot about this, but maybe not to the extent that I want to really empower you with. So as far as check all that apply, these are probably a lot of excuses that we have when we don't exercise, right? I have no time for exercise. Probably that's the number one excuse, I would say. You know, I would say to people during all of my lectures, how many people exercise on a regular basis? And that's going to be my first question to you. So how many of you out there exercise on a regular basis? Give me a Y if you say yes, give me an N if you say no. And we're going to take a look at that. So time for exercise, I'm bored with my workout. Another big excuse for not returning once you start a workout. Usually if you're bored with your workout, you're probably not picking the right activity or type of workout. I have no energy. Well, yeah, you have no energy if you don't exercise. If your body doesn't build up its endurance, you are going to have no energy. So the only way to combat that is to actually move. My joints are stiff and are painful. Back again. All of the research that I have done in therapy for, let's say, arthritis, which is a huge, huge dysfunction for most of our ailing Americans, right? So what happens with arthritis, we want to reach for our acetaminophen, or we want to reach for our Motrin, or we want a script for Celebrex, or we want an injection, you know, a Hyalin injection, or a cortisone injection. So we go to our doc, and that's probably the first line of defense. The studies indicate probably the best way to actually release the stiffness and the pain in your joints is with movement. Your joints like movement, your nerves like movement, your musculoskeletal system likes movement. It's degrees of how much movement in order to actually alleviate the stiffness and the pain. So I lose my balance easily. Yes, we are an aging population. I talked about how it's become, we spend probably over $60 billion a year on falls alone, okay? Whether it's, you know, bones breaking, or whether it's, you know, people being hung up in the hospital or in rehab for months. So balance is a huge problem. I have more than 4 hours of screen time, TV, computer a day. Again, you know, at the end of the day, how much time are you really sitting down and watching that TV, okay? If it's more than 4 hours, it's excessive. You've been sedentary for 4 hours. Some people say, well, you know what? I did an hour workout this morning. It's 5 o'clock. I hit the couch. I got on the recliner. I got my clicker, and I'm sitting there until 11 o'clock at night. That kind of gets rid of that 1 hour of exercise you did, right? So the 4 hours of screen time, and a lot of us have no choice who have to actually work and sit on a computer. There are ways to actually get yourself moving, okay? And I tell people who are stuck sitting on a computer all day, set a timer, get up every 2 hours, stretch, get a workstation that you can stand, sit. Movement is the key. I feel anxious and stressed all the time. This is a huge factor in why we don't want to exercise, because we may become depressed when we get into this point. When we become depressed, we don't want to move. When we become stressed, anxious, or depressed, we also want to eat, and probably the wrong foods. So if you have some level of physical activity, where are you finding success? What is working well for you? Okay, so first I wanted to know who exercises on a regular basis out of all the participants out there. And then I want to know what is successful for you with any kind of an exercise program. So we're going to jump back here, okay? And Frank, what do you got for me?
Yep, I got about 85% said yes.
Nice.
I have a few no's and a few so-so, but
Okay.
the majority, yes, is exercising.
Okay. I'm gonna now, out of those people, did anybody say maybe what type of exercise program is working for them?
No, some of them, I like to go for walks, did 54 minutes today.
Okay.
Exercise 5 times a week, aerobics.
Okay.
When it's warm, I'm walking.
Okay.
Stretch with yoga and walk and hike.
Okay.
Zumba, strength training, HIIT, I don't know what this is. Aerobics and walking, stretching, yoga. That's great.
All right. So good.
Hardly time to exercise or even cook. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sometimes we're in this.
We're going to talk a little bit about things that may not necessarily be formal exercise, but still you gain the same results from.
But
so
it's quite a few.
We're going to go back and talk about that a little.
Quite a few who work out, actually, quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of them walking 5 times a week.
Excellent.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right, so my next question is, what makes it hard for you to stick to your exercise program? For those of you who, even those who are continuing doing it, what may be an obstacle that, you know, you're like, oh, I really don't feel like doing this, but I'm doing it. I mean, just, you know, kind of chat with me and let me know what those obstacles are, okay? And let's see if we get any response there.
Motivation, being too busy, cold weather.
Yeah.
Weather.
Right.
Weather.
So, yeah, a lot of the reasons come down to, you know, I don't have the time. Okay, I don't have the time.
Yeah.
I'm too
sluggish
busy
to start in the morning.
Yeah. But you know,
walking.
why do you brush your teeth twice a day and floss them? Okay. Doesn't take a lot of time. I get it. You know, if anything, we do it in 5 seconds and we're done. But it's a priority. So again, we're gonna empower you people to make this a complete priority. And I think for most of you, it seems like most of you are already doing some kind of a program. In that case, you know, you're finding that once you get started, that it becomes a lot easier because you're then in the once you do your exercise, as soon as you leave, you probably feel like $1 million. Okay. Yeah. We'll talk about why that is.
I have some who said they have injuries,
okay.
Bump knee, ankle, back problems.
Okay.
And so forth.
Okay. And we're going to address that because regardless, and you know, again, depending on what kind of programs you're getting into, unless for now you it's totally contraindicated from your doctor to exercise, absolutely. But if it's not, and maybe you've been rehabbed for whatever particular joint you went through, and then you decide you're still having pain or dysfunction, well, there's always a way to exercise around that or to actually improve whatever that orthopedic problem is. So again, my key objectives, understand why exercise is important for your body and general wellness, the key components of a successful and safe exercise program, and how to build your own program and get started. So, you know, we're looking at wellness, right? So I'm hoping that people who sign up to lose weight isn't just about what they see in the mirror, okay? That may be why we get started. Maybe, you know, we're like, oh my gosh, look at this, nothing looks good on me, I feel horrible. But really, it's more about global wellness, about what's going on with your inside body, right? You can't see that. So for a lot of people, it's really not that important. It's important about the external part. So we really need these 5 components. We need, obviously, relaxation. We need to reduce our stress levels, so then we will feel like we'll actually feel better when we exercise. And if we don't get the appropriate amount of sleep, especially our REM sleep, okay, we are not going to have the energy, and we're not going to have the performance to do anything. It's going to lead us to make poor, poor choices, whether it's diet or whether it's non-exercise, right? Obviously, you guys are all there now with the diet, and don't beat yourselves up if you go off the wagon. My key words for my success and keeping myself healthy, well, thin, is basically 2 words. Number 1 is prevention. Number 2 is moderation, okay? Those 2 words are really what I follow. And that's where exercise comes in. And then globally, basically, all of those elements will feed into a healthy, not just a healthy heart, but a healthy body. So let's go through some statistics here. Of the American population, 30% gets 0 physical activity in their spare time. 80% do not get enough physical activity. In the past 20 years, those who were considered obese increased from 30 to 42%. Actually, the latest statistic is 70% of Americans are considered obese, okay? What does that mean? It means that their BMI is greater than 30. Never mind the percentage, and I'm not just talking about obese, I'm talking about morbid obesity. Half of all people who start a fitness program drop out within the first 6 months. Basically, the gyms count on that. I've worked for gyms for 40 years, and part of my hospital system, we had 4 gyms. We would sign you up for your 6 months or a year. Now it's usually a year, and they take their monthly amount right out of your account, right? And they know come January, oh, everybody's their New Year's resolution, they get in, they sign up for a gym. And I'd say the group fitness classes were packed. We had 50 people. Then come March, then maybe you're seeing 30. Then come, April, May, June, it's down to 15, okay? The gym, you've got 3 people now on a treadmill where you had maybe 20, all right? So that's how our gyms make money. They count on you not coming anymore. They make their money either through personal training or through their group fitness exercise program, because that's where they can get their revenue, and that's where they can get their numbers. So again, and I'm going to talk about why this happens, okay? Why we drop off the wagon. So why maintain an active lifestyle? Not just necessarily the external part of what we're seeing in this picture, okay? Again, morbidly obese, BMI greater than 30. There's ways to actually, talk about, the weight gain. There's ways to actually measure our body fat. We globally use a BMI, all right? That's really not a very accurate way to do it. It's really height and weight. You can Google a BMI calculator, put in your height and your weight, it's going to tell you what your BMI is. If you're a very muscular person, obviously this is just not going to be an accurate measurement if you have a large frame, right? Hip to waist ratio is probably a little bit more accurate, okay, especially since most of our problems arise when we are extremely obese in our middle body. This is our adipose tissue here, okay? They say your apple or your pear. Okay, the apples are going to have more metabolic disorders because when the adipose tissue is in our abdomen, that leads us to metabolic disorders, okay, like diabetes, heart disease. And again, you know, that's why when you do a hip to waist ratio, you can probably get a better indication. And basically all you're doing is you're dividing your waist. Your waist is divided, you're dividing your waist by your hip, okay? And again, all you have to do is Google waist to hip ratio. It'll come up with a calculator. You put your numbers in and it'll tell you the number. Now, if for women you are 0.85 or less, okay, you're in great shape. If you're above that, you're probably, you know, depending on how many levels above that you are, it's something that you could consider having some problems. For men, it's 0.9 or less is the good numbers. Again, if you Google this, put those numbers in, it'll even give you the chart on where you stand, okay? Probably one of the better ways to measure your body fat is they now have the body fat scales. They're called bioelectrical impedance. And what they do is they send an electrical current up one limb, up to your hip, okay, and down the other limb. And what that does is, depending on the amount of dense tissue it has to go through versus water, the more density it has to go through, the less body fat. So again, if it's a pretty reputable organization that sells a scale, that's a great way to also measure the fat versus the lean muscle mass. In regards to this, I just want to talk because of COVID, it's funny, the statistic, they did a survey and they said out of a lot of Americans, I think it was 43% of the survey they did said that they gained an average of 28 to 29 pounds during COVID, right? I have a client now that I Zoom with, I do training with him, and he said, I've got 15 COVID pounds I've got to lose. And part of the problem is the isolation, is not going to gyms, is not being with people. To exercise by yourself is a real challenge. That's why Zoom or maybe even YouTube is kind of impersonal, right? So a lot of people, you know, got depressed. A lot of people ate more. A lot of people stayed inside. So this led into, you know, this pandemic. So there's a great article in the New York Times that, you know, I think is excellent. All along this pandemic, I would go on my soapbox with people and I'd say, okay, so some of the requirements that we need to maintain in order to be safe from developing COVID was basically we need to mask, right? We need to social distance, stay far away from people, not be in groups, and wash our hands frequently, okay? And I'd say, wait a minute, where's the other two? They should be all the way up on the top, right? It should be exercise diet, maintain a healthy exercise and diet, and exercise on a regular basis. The people who suffered the most, and you're going to see more and more studies, were the obese. And reason being is obviously the more obese you are, the more risk factors you have, the more comorbidities, cardiovascular disease. What is it? 64% of Americans over the age of 65 take 4 or more prescription medications. And I don't have to tell you the first 3, right? Statin, blood pressure, thyroid, and now you can put up there in the top 5 is antidepressants. So, and heart disease is really preventable. But the interesting thing that they did mention, I just want to read real quickly in this article, please stay with me here. Just a couple of quotes because I thought this was really good. We need to stop blaming genetics for every ailment and focus more on preventable causes of poor health, like a bad diet and inactivity, right? This isn't going to be our last big virus that's going to come around and infect us. This isn't going to be, I mean, I pray it's not going to be another pandemic, but we need to prepare our bodies, right? And this to me is the lesson to be learned. Okay, maybe I've been a lifetime of just, you know, going with the flow here. Now's the time to get on board and take care of yourself instead of going to the doc, looking for the prescription, looking for the shot, and looking for the easy way out. The other interesting thing this author did point out is our insurance companies need to reward us for doing well with our health, right? I would love, and for a while they were going to implement this. Some of the gyms were, every time they were tracking how many times you went to the gym, and each time you went, you would get credit, and your insurance would reimburse you for that. I know their Silver Sneakers was doing it for a while. I don't know if they still are. And insurance companies should really maybe start reimbursing people like dietitians, physical trainers, behavioral counselors, okay? And these are people who are all about prevention, okay? And I can only say, after I worked for that hospital system for 24 years, a good example was they decided to get rid of all their fitness centers. Why did they do that? They got an independent organization to come in, run all their fitness. They used the hospital name, you know, in membership with whatever the hospital was, but they were a separate organization. The sad thing was with that was, the reason being they did that was because wellness does not make a hospital money. Mm-hmm. So they put a brand new cardiac wing on, brand new. So where is the emphasis? It's not on wellness, it's on illness. So we need to change that perspective. And if you ask any of my friends or any of my relatives, they're so tired of me talking about this, but I really feel passionate, and I think everybody has an opportunity to change even in little increments. And if you change in little increments, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger as you go along. Okay, so let's get back here. And again, if you're looking and you want this article, again, you can find this and look this up. Okay. So the good news, exercise facts. Let's talk about overall benefits, all right? Basically, overall benefits, number one is the cardiorespiratory system. We decrease our blood pressure. The two most important muscles in our body, I'm gonna tell you the one, which is obviously your heart. If anybody out there can tell me the other one, please respond, and I will be really surprised, unless it's somebody who takes my Zoom class who I invited on, they will probably know this answer. But otherwise, there are two muscles in your body that are probably the most important, and obviously the first one is the heart. So as we exercise, obviously we get more circulation through those veins and those arteries, right? So we clean out any plaque that's in there. So we have less chance of arteriosclerosis. Maybe we don't need those statins, right? We obviously will decrease our blood pressure because now our heart doesn't have to work that hard. Our cardiac output is improved. We have increased insulin sensitivity. So basically your body is just a more efficient machine, just with that increased circulation. We see improvements in strength and flexibility. A little bit about strength, because a lot of people I hear out there who are exercising are doing basically a cardiovascular type of exercise. And walking does improve an amount of strength because it is weight bearing, but not enough to really build lean body mass. The more lean body tissue you have, the higher your metabolic rate. The higher your metabolic rate, the increased fat burn you will have. So it's not just about cardiovascular conditioning. If you start to gain muscle mass, okay, that is going to allow you to burn calories, and you're going to burn calories at rest. So if you have an activity tracker and you want to see how many calories you're burning during your activity, you can see that. But you can also find out, wow, I woke up and I burned 400 calories sleeping tonight, okay? The more conditioned you are, the more muscle mass you have, the more calories at rest you will burn. So there's a bonus with strength training. Flexibility, obviously, again, I'm going to point out a lot of you people who are out there exercising, mostly doing a lot of walking and cardiovascular conditioning. If you don't do any kind of stretching, you are probably going to have some kind of an itis, okay? Because the walking can create tightness in muscles, and if you don't alleviate that tightness, okay, you're going to develop different dysfunctions because of that and muscle imbalances. Before I continue on that note, I want everybody to basically stand, and maybe we can share some questions. And while we share some questions, I want people to do a little movement, okay? So, Frank, what do you got for me?
Okay, most people said brain to the muscle.
Most people, I'm sorry?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, most people said brain For the second muscle?
No, no, that's an organ. No,
Uh,
not lungs. Anybody?
lungs I have here, but lungs is not a muscle.
Well, we're getting close.
Is it the abdomen or? I don't have anyone who said anything else.
Okay, abdomen. Your
Abdomen.
abdomen controls your respiration and your heart. And it's an actual muscle. We take it for granted. And believe it or not, it moves in opposition of what you think. So when you inhale, instead of it going up, your abdomen goes down. Okay.
Right.
And when you exhale, the abdomen rises up. So I'm sure you've heard of diaphragmatic breathing. That diaphragm is the biggest, most important muscle. So diaphragm, which creates an abdomen movement pattern, it's actually the diaphragm that is the muscle. So as that diaphragm moves, it creates, it increases our lymph throughout our body, and the lymph is very important for our immune system, our respiration, our heart and lungs. So it's actually the diaphragm, and now you know, heart and diaphragm, okay? All right, so while I got you guys, is there anything else anybody wanted to?
Let me check the questions. Some said that they wish you could help them with sleep. And let's see. No, that's it. I don't see anything else.
Okay. So real quick, everybody, and this is probably the most functional exercise you can do. And even if you have arthritis in your knees, you have to get in and out of a chair, right? Okay. So it's a matter of degrees. And if it's contraindicated or if the pain is that bad, you would obviously lessen your repetitions when you did an exercise like this. But for me, the best way to do a squat, and I don't care what age it is actually a chair squat. Reason being is because the way it distributes your weight, number one, and number two, it's functional because you're working the muscles the way you need them. Some of the squats I see are absolutely insane. So if you all get up and you take your chair.
Why don't you, can we make the screen?
Can you see me?
Yeah, but I want to make you the.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how to do that, but okay, we can see you.
All right, so all I want you to do really is have a seat, stand up. Have a seat, stand up. Okay, again, now if your knees are problematic and you get cranky after 5, don't go to 10, all right? We come down slow with control, we come up. Now, for those of you who are more advanced, we come down slow and controlled, but there's a heat lamp under our butt and we have to come right back up, all right? So slow and controlled. So now I'm going from low intensity, very easy squat to maybe a little bit more intensity where I'm really hardly touching that chair, okay? How can we increase that intensity for you higher level exercisers? Obviously, if you add weights to that, okay, and you do what's called, I call them a compound exercise. So how I put my programs together, because just like the rest of you, nobody has a lot of time to do exercises. Compound exercises means you are working more than one muscle, so you're integrating a lot of muscles, and you're incorporating a lot of strategies to improve global conditioning, okay? So I like to work small unit muscles and then go out to the bigger muscles. The smaller unit muscles, let's say for the shoulder, would be your rotator cuff. How many people by the time they're 70 will have a rotator cuff tear and repair, right? So do you go to the gym? Do you see any machines there that actually work your rotator cuff? No, not unless you're doing a cable column, but there's no machines that do things like this. All the machines are pretty much in your straight plane. We don't move our bodies like those machines train us to. So those Cybex machines, all those machines are basically not functional. They actually stabilize your core to work your limbs. I say, let the core be the paramount unit for stabilization, and then that strength will flow out to your limbs, always. So a nice functional exercise for maybe is to add a little external and internal rotation of the shoulder, okay? Depending on your level of fitness level, in my one Zoom class, I may have them use 10 to 12 pound weights, okay? So again, different levels, different ways to progress, very functional, and we'll talk a little bit more how you can actually increase those compound exercises to incorporate a lot more things like balance. Okay, so we're gonna continue. So we talked about strength, flexibility, mood, attitude. I can only attest for myself. When I get done with a run, you heard of people with runner's high, okay? I've really cut back on my running because I know I have arthritis in my spine. All that impact is probably not good. Running, I cut back on. I've really embraced biking. I do a lot of biking. When I get done with my exercise, I feel like $1 million. And I'm sure that I can attest all of you feel the same way. Why? Our body produces natural feel-good hormones, endorphins. We get that endorphin release. I am an endorphin junkie with exercise. Some people are endorphin junkies with food. What does that mean? We derive the same endorphins. We get a serotonin boost, okay? You can get that in a pill. You can get it from high carbohydrate, fatty, sugar foods. That's why when we get upset, we get depressed, we're gonna reach for that. We're not gonna reach for the apple or the celery. That's just not gonna work for us, right? You can derive the same benefits by getting the exercise, okay? Again, depending on the level of intensity, whatever level you're at, and I'm sure all of you come back from your walk, you feel so much better. They've actually taken that to a lot of psychological counselors now. Instead of lying on a couch and telling people your problems, they get you up and maybe they take a walk because it releases so much more of your body. So again, you don't have to get a pill for this, it's automatic. And obviously the self-esteem is going to improve because you're going to see, maybe you're not going to see, wow, all of a sudden I look so much thinner. Diet is #1 for losing weight. But diet alone is not going to maintain the weight. Unless you exercise, you're going to hit a brick wall, you're going to plateau, and unless you incorporate an exercise program, then you're going to be able to maintain that weight loss, okay? And then as that starts to happen, your self-esteem is going to improve. Obviously, you look better, you feel better, your mood is going to change. Basically, you know, putting that whole puzzle together is going to, it's not just about, again, seeing yourself in the mirror, it's how you feel from the inside out. Balance, we talked about balance. Balance is a huge, huge deficit with our aging population. Why? Because as we age, our nervous system declines, right? We don't have the agility we did. We don't have the speed of movement. We don't have the reaction time. If I were to tell you, I want you to do a burpee and I want you to go this fast, people, you know, in their 60s are going to be like, my body's just not going to move that fast compared to a 14, 20, or 30-year-old. So as we go through some of the exercises, you're going to see some of the tools I use, and I always incorporate balance for 2 reasons. #1, not just for the balance component, but in order to balance, you need to have good core stability. So you get both benefits from it. Immune system. This is huge, especially after this year. We've learned how huge it is. They're finally doing more and more studies on exercise in the immune system, which they haven't really done. They said, well, we know it's better because we know it increases your circulation, blah, blah, blah. Now they're doing really in-depth studies. They're finding that it increases pro-anti-inflammatory cytokines, which means you have increased cell recruitment. And the cell recruitment that you're increasing are things like macrophages. These are things that eat up viruses, white blood cells, T cells, which are your killer T cells. This is all increased. The lymphatic system gets increased with exercise. So that's #1. #2 is when you exercise, you develop heat, right? So you raise the heat of your body. What happens when you have a fever? It does the same thing. It helps to fight infections. So the more studies they're doing, the more you're going to find how this is huge in prevention, okay? Sleep. I find myself, the days that I don't exercise, I don't have the best night's sleep. The days that I exercise, I'm out like a light, okay? So again, obviously you're gonna tire yourself when you work out. Cognitive function. Recent studies I just read, and I always tell my group fitness classes this, I teach a few of them, and the most recent study they did, you know, everybody thinks, well, you know, in order to decrease dementia or Alzheimer's is, you know, I'll do a lot of crossword puzzles, or I'll do a lot of puzzles, you know, word puzzles. It's very fine motor movement and brain. They find exercise actually improves it even better. Why? It's gross movement patterns. So a study that was just recently done, this was actually again in the New York Times not that long ago, they took a control group and an exercise group. Before they started the study, they had them all do a memory test, a couple of tasks that they had to perform. Then they did a 6-week exercise program, and the control group did no exercise. And then they went and repeated another memory testing that they did. And they found that the group that had the 6-week exercise program had significantly done better on the memory and the tasks, okay? Reason being is, and I tell my class, I mean, basically, if I do choreography with my class, okay, 4 knees up, 4 knees back, kick to the side, kick back, 4 squats, now let's do it again. They have to remember the sequence, right? Or when you're doing an exercise program, not necessarily just walking, you wind up having to think while you actually are exercising. So I think part of it is they see improvements in the memory part of your hippocampus, which is in your brain. You get more circulation to your brain, obviously, and you get the circulation to the memory portion of the brain. So what do we do before we even start an exercise program? I know a lot of you out there who said, well, you know, maybe you can't. Obviously, you need a medical clearance. You need your doc to say, yay, it's go ahead, you gotta go. Excuse me. You need to have your controlled glucose levels, blood pressure. Obviously, if you have high blood pressure or you have type 2 diabetes, as soon as you start an exercise program, those things are going to change. There is going to be fluctuations in both your blood pressure and your glucose. Good points, but if you are diabetic and you start exercising vigorously, okay, your sugar may just bottom out. So again, these are some things that you need to be controlled. And I like people with these kind of comorbidities to maybe get a trainer to work with them until they are able to identify what they can do themselves to keep those things level. And again, identify any areas of recurring pain. Most of the time when we get an orthopedic problem, whether it's a tendonitis, elbow tendonitis, or maybe shoulder tendonitis, or I treat somebody who hurt their hip, it's usually due to imbalances. Our body is filled with imbalances, okay? We may overwork one muscle and underwork another. We may stretch one muscle more and understretch another muscle more. That's how our body operates. It operates with imbalances. Once we find an appropriate program, we create a balance with that program. So understanding any areas of recurring pain and then identifying them and then making sure the exercise program is appropriate for those areas. So we do, when we put a program together, we do what's called a FIT principle, something that you just say, well, there's an acronym for that. It's basically what is appropriate, you know, the frequency, the intensity, the time, the type. Frequency, according to the American Academy of Sports Medicine and the American Heart Association, they recommend 5 days a week. We're talking more about cardiovascular. 5 days a week, okay, and that doesn't mean you take 2 days to sit on the couch. 5 days a week of, we'll talk about the intensity, 5 days a week of maybe working at more of a moderate, light to moderate intensity. Obviously, if you're a new exerciser, you don't have to start with 5 days a week. You can start with 3 days a week. For frequency, for intensity, you want to start out light, okay? As far as time, you basically want to, they recommend 5 days a week, 30 minutes. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do 30 minutes in one shot. A lot of people think, oh, I don't have time. You know, by the time I get done putting all this stuff together, there's my hour, right? So maybe you'll go 15 minutes in the water and do a walk. Maybe you'll be really busy with tasks around your house that create energy. So that could be 15 minutes, right? And maybe at the end of your day, you can add another 15 minutes. Maybe you can break it up in 10 minutes. You've heard of 30-minute workouts. I mean, there's ways to get to that 30 minutes without having to do all the 30 minutes in one shot. So lastly is type. This is what's going to keep you going. If you pick something that is weather permitting, okay, oh, it's too cold, it's winter, I'm not going to go walk in that snow. Well, there goes a few months of your year, right? If you pick an activity that's not specific to maybe you love walking, but your knee does not like all that weight bearing because you have significant arthritis. Walking would not be a prescription for you to do exercise, okay? Biking, less weight bearing. Elliptical, less weight bearing. Pool exercises, bingo, #1 for arthritis, okay? Don't have access to a pool, maybe you can find a rec center, a community program, a Y, and obviously summers. So, and again, don't discredit other things that you do. Maybe you like to go and dance. Maybe just you're very active in the garden, okay? Maybe you like to play golf. So there's different modes of exercise that you can do. Eventually, you want to start out with a small piece of the pie. The #1 reason people do not stick with the gym program is because they take too much of the pie. They go in, they say, I'm going to work out 5 days a week. I'm going to do strength training. I'm going to take this class, this class, this class. And after a few months, they can't adhere. So anytime I get anybody involved in an exercise program, I say, you sign up for 2 days, you conquer the 2 days, then maybe you add another day. Now you're up to 3 days, right? You stick with the 3 days. If you can stick with the 3 days, maybe you go to 4. 7 days, it's excessive. If it's a moderate to a vigorous exercise program, you always need a day rest. That doesn't mean you should not be active. And you should always incorporate, we're going to talk about the different things that you should incorporate with your exercise program. Okay, so that's going to lead me to the demo. So I want to be able to demonstrate a little bit so you guys have a better understanding. Before I go to the demo, I'm going to check back with Frank. Frank, let me know before I continue if there's some questions here that maybe I need to answer.
Yeah. Okay, we have a few questions here. How do you motivate yourself?
How do I motivate myself?
No, not you. That's what the question is.
Okay, we're actually, that is definitely going to be answered. So we're going to get through the sticking to the program. Yep, that I will definitely answer that.
Okay. I have had a number of foot injuries. My last doctor makes sure to get good sneakers and good socks. Any thoughts on shoes to get and what gives best support?
Okay. You know, I have a whole huge foot lecture that I would perform to the community. And as part of that lecture, I would do a foot screening because we don't know, most of the major people out there don't know what kind of foot type they have. And basically you're either a supinator, a pronator, or neutral. As my husband would say, speak English. What are you talking about? Okay. What is a supinator and a pronator? Basically, the way you can tell your foot mechanics is if you take a footprint in the barefoot, wet, and then walk, see your footprint in the sand on the beach. If you have a very, very high arch and you don't see that arch in that footprint, that means that you have a very rigid foot and you are a supinator, okay? Supinator means rigidity in the foot. Supinator means you need cushion support for your footwear, all right?
Really?
So when you go to pick out, especially athletic sneakers, there are a lot of I used to refer a lot of my foot patients to a shoe store up in where I lived in New Jersey, because these guys were so good, they would be able to assess their foot mechanics and pick out the appropriate sneaker for them. Now, if I go through this foot thing and you find you are either a pronator, supinator, or neutral foot, you can go on any one of your favorite brands. Go on to ASICS. Type in sneakers for overpronators, or type in sneakers for supinators, or type in sneakers for neutral foot, and they're going to list all the different types of sneakers. Unfortunately, we don't have the old-fashioned shoe stores that you used to go in where they would take out the thing, they'd measure, they'd look at your foot and say, this is the appropriate footwear. Our foot is so important for the rest of our body. Why? Because that's where all our weight is. So they used to call me the foot queen in rehab because I went to so many foot courses. Why? What started me out was I had a lot of foot problems myself. All right, so we talked about the supinator, high arch, rigid foot. If you have a very rigid foot, where do you think that force is going to go if you're a walker? It's going to go right up. You can go to your knee, you can go to your hip, you can go to your spine. Okay, you can develop all different dysfunctions just from too much impact due to a rigid supinating foot. The most problematic foot type is called an overpronator, and they're the ones who actually have no arch. So when you walk, you don't even see that little arch. The arch is designed to actually create stability in your foot. So those people, if you see their feet, and I'm going to exaggerate, if you see their legs, they probably look like this, probably more knock-knee because now their feet are rolling in. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but it's hard to tell unless you actually see that footprint, okay? Those people, if somebody comes in with a bad knee for therapy, the first thing I'm going to look at is their foot, because I'd say 75% of bad knees, especially medial meniscus and medial problems where we start to develop a lot of pain here, has a lot to do with our foot mechanics. And if we are an overpronator, our knees are going to be the first thing that are going to scream at us, okay? We can develop things because of all that instability. The foot's got too much movement now. There's not enough stability. So we can get shearing things like plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendonitis. We can get all kinds of itises due to all of this, okay? One quick story. And when I did this foot lecture, I would put up different footwear that's become very trendy. And as you all know, remember the rocker sneakers people used to wear, okay? And if you don't know, they actually are shaped like this, the bottom of the sneaker, right? And I would get these people coming in, oh, but they feel so comfortable. Yeah, they feel comfortable because your foot doesn't have to do what it has to do. Your foot should actually do its own thing. The intrinsic, extrinsic muscles of the foot need to operate, or they're going to weaken, right? You take that sneaker off and you don't even have any structure in your foot. So I had this 85-year-old woman come in because she kept falling and losing her balance. So she comes into rehab and she's wearing the rocker sneakers. And what do you think she's doing? You think she can stand still? No, her body's rocking back and forth. And I'm like, okay, so what's wrong with this picture? I said, who recommended those sneakers? She said, oh, my orthopod, he said, they're so comfortable, it'll take the force off my body. I said, yeah, but it will make you fall. So fortunately, we're not seeing a lot of that. We see some crazy footwear between that and the completely flat ladies. We love our little flat shoes, right? Because they look nice with capris. Get rid of them. You need support no matter what your foot type is. Always have that arch supported. For your overpronators who really don't have much of an arch, okay, you need sneakers that provide for stability. So go on, if you like Asics like I do, put in sneakers for overpronators or for pronators, and they're going to show you stability sneakers, okay? Very, very important with any type of walking, weight-bearing exercise program is the foot. Thank you for that question.
That was a great question. Wonderful. Thank you so much for asking this.
Excellent.
Perfect. And
okay.
Thank you so much for answering this.
All right, so let's go back. All right, so again, I'm going to go quickly through some of this. I know I'm totally running out of time here, but I want to basically touch base on some of the things that I do, some of the things I incorporate, not just in my my one-on-one training, but in my Zoom classes. And again, just like the rest of you, we don't have a lot of time. You should basically have these key elements in your exercise program because one is no better than the other. A lot of us are already doing this cardiovascular conditioning, right? Yep, okay, we've got to get our heart rate up. We've got to increase the circulation. We talked about how paramount weight training is at the same time, okay? How that actually helps with the metabolic rate also and lean body mass. The flexibility so we don't incur injuries, so we keep the range of motion around our joints. The more range of motion you have around that joint, when you do your cardiovascular activity, the more efficient you're going to be in burning, right? Balance training, an absolute must. When I designed this group fitness class that I was doing, I had like 50 people come in, and I told you about the different ages. I had a couple of guys who were real heavy weight trainers. They work out in the gym, they were buff, right? You know, they come in and they thought, oh, this class is going to be a piece of cake. Do you know they couldn't even balance on one leg? Okay, couldn't balance and stand on one leg and perform movements with their arms. So what does that tell you? You can be as strong as possible, but you have a lack of what we call proprioception. Very important word, proprioception. What that means is where your body is. Does your body understand where one arm is to the other? And then more importantly, does your body understand how to adapt to different surface levels? Okay, so those weight training guys who are really strong probably didn't have a lot of core or specific core. What those weight training guys would do is they would work all the superficial muscles, and I call them the mirror muscles, what you see in the mirror, which is usually the frontal plane, okay? Because we like to see all that. We like to do the chest press, right? The muscles you don't see that everybody else sees, those are your weakest ones. Your spine is number one. Inside the inner unit muscles, the ones that you can hardly feel, are absolutely the most paramount muscles in your body. If you don't have those core muscles strong, when I talk about core muscles, muscles that go up and down your vertebrae, they attach vertebrae to vertebrae, they'll call you metaphysis, number one. Number two, your oblique muscles that create rotation and flexion. Number three, your transversus abdominis. It's like, goes right across your body here. You can't feel it, okay? It acts as a girdle. It kind of compresses, okay? It's a breathing muscle. That's why breathing is paramount when you do core exercise. And lastly, your scapular thoracic, your postural muscles, okay? They're not just good for keeping your back healthy and your posture right. They help with this shoulder dysfunction. So that being said, let's go through some of this. And I'm going to try to get you guys, so I have all my tools back here, okay? So what can I incorporate for both cardiovascular conditioning and balance at the same time and functional movement patterns, okay? Now, for a home program, you really don't need expensive tools. A balance disc, we utilize this. I actually take this to the rec center, and all of my senior women are now being able to stand on this, which is extremely challenging. When we first started, we might have just done some seated stabilization exercises, okay? And then we progressed to maybe standing on one leg and doing some functional movement patterns, okay? Anytime you work your body in a diagonal plane, we work our muscles the way we use them. How do we use our muscles? We don't reach like this and this. We reach across, we reach down, right? There's rotation, there's flexion, there's extension. So why are we doing exercises that don't mimic the way we need our strength? Unless you're doing a program that's specifically for a sport, that's different. But for this population I think I'm talking to, you need to strengthen the muscles the way you use them, okay? So we're going to do things that require maybe functional patterns, okay? I like to use a yoga block just as a prop. It allows us to maybe open up our body, okay? We can do some functionality movements. So maybe you don't have the balance yet to even balance and come up. So maybe you just start shifting your weight, okay? That would be your low level. Here would be your next level. And maybe now I want to take this up and add a cardio component to it, okay? So I got my foot on the balance disc. First level, second level, advanced level, okay? You do about 15 of these on each side, that heart rate is going to shoot right up. What am I incorporating? Functionality, stability, heart rate, all in one exercise, okay? We can do the same thing with a device called the Bosu. You can get mini Bosus, they're not as expensive. Again, they're a little bit more stable, but they're higher. So we can actually do things where we can step up onto them to start. And then eventually, we can get you to stand on them, okay? I'm making it look easy, but if you've never done any type of balance training, and then we can add our functional movement patterns, okay? opening up that front body because we're here all the time, we're on the computer. We want to do things that open up our body, right? We want to focus on those postural muscles. We don't want to do biceps. They're the strongest muscle in our upper arm. Why am I going to do 50 bicep curls? We want to focus on triceps, posterior muscles, spinal extensor muscles. These are the guys that hold us up. Look at your aging population, right? We're all going to be here because we're all on our computers, we're all on our cell phones, we're all here. So we become what we do, right? We're always in that flex position. And then all of a sudden you bend down, you pick up a pen, you're, I got to see the chiropractor. I don't know why my back went out. Muscle imbalance. You're strong here, you're tight here, you're weak here. So it's about creating balances. So again, let's say I want to take up the notch on my cardio, okay? I can use my Bosu. I can start with maybe just coming on and off. This would be my low level exerciser, right? Then maybe I want to take it up. And then maybe I really want to take it up. And here's my high level. 1 minute of this and your heart rate will shoot right up. So depending on your levels, cardiovascular, balance, functional movements. Other tools I like to use, you don't have free weights. We talked about the cans. Very inexpensive device is your band, okay? They come in all different colors depending on the intensity. This happens to be very intense. A lot of the exercises I like to use, again, probably one of my favorite would be called a chop. Chop, okay? When you look at the band as it goes up and down, I'm going to get so much more range of motion in my torso if I don't. So I'm creating rotational component. Now, if I want to make it hard, I can add that squat. My knees don't like squats, stay here. I want less resistance, stay here. So again, there's modifications. So I'm going to get my heart rate up. I'm strengthening at the same time. There's a lot of different exercises. I want to work my back body, okay? Here's my back body. Posterior shoulder, glutes, spine. Physio Ball. So we don't even really need free weights, right? Our body weight is our resistance, okay? Gravity in our body weight. So quick exercise, low level wall ball squats. The further my legs are from the wall, obviously the more intensity, the closer, the easier. Now I'm working on instability because I have an unstable surface, so I'm creating stability. Anytime my body goes on an unstable position, even if I'm just sitting, okay, I'm engaging my core muscles. My multifidus is firing like crazy to keep my spine level, right? So regardless of what position I put my body, my wall ball squats, okay? My wall ball push-ups, I'm sorry. If you're a really high level and you're like, well, that's not gonna work for me, you can actually then, if you have no problems coming down onto the floor, you can actually do your push-ups utilizing the ball on the floor. Depending on my level, if I want to work harder, I walk the ball out further. If I want to work less, I take the ball closer to my chest. So again, modifying for whatever your level of strength is. The Physio Ball, every family should have a Physio Ball. You can put your body in so many different positions. Let's say I have a very, very cranky knee, can't do squats, don't know what level to start with. We do a straight leg raise. We don't initiate any bending or flexing of that knee, and we just work our quad. Now I'm incorporating balance, stabilizing with my core. So every time that leg goes up, I pull my navel in. I'm not here, and I'm not here, okay? And now I have to balance as I work that quadricep, okay? Gravity is my resistance. Probably one of my favorite exercises are planks. You can do planks a million different ways. You can do it on the wall. You can do it on the Physio Ball. If you do it on the floor, you can modify on the floor. By the way, 7 hours is the world record for a plank. So I want to do a plank on the floor. Okay, my high level would be here. And if I find the shoulders start to really talk to me, I come down to my low level, okay? The chair is a great device, not just for squats, but we can do a lot of exercises with the chair. So we can actually do chair burpees, and we can do chair burpees for the very low level. Number 1, reach up, come down, step out, step in. We pick up our speed, and we do this maybe 30 seconds. Second level, more moderate exercisers, up, down, step out, maybe a hop in, step out, maybe a hop in, okay? Third level, let's take it up. Add a little plyometrics. And of course, I'm gonna put in a 4th level. So regardless of your mode of ability, you modify for what you can do for your body. That's incorporating a lot of strength, okay? It's gonna get your heart rate pumping. Not expensive piece of equipment here, right? Third, little thigh band, okay? You can put that on around your thighs. You can put it around your ankles. The hip muscles here are the most important for stabilizing and balancing. So in order for me to stand on one leg, basically, I need my core. If I don't have a core, it's not gonna happen. So if I draw my navel in, I hold my belly tight, okay? I'm now stable. My hip abductor is very important to stabilize. It's my stabilizing muscle of my hip. If I have a cranky knee, the most important exercises to do is hip abduction. We really need to strengthen that lateral hip muscle to be able to stabilize the knee, okay? That and the core, okay? So now I'm stabilizing, my hip is engaged, my core is engaged, and now I can do functional movement patterns here, just balancing on one leg, okay? So again, incorporating the range of motion, incorporating the balance, incorporating the cardiovascular conditioning are all parts of putting an exercise program together in a shortened period of time, right? Lastly, real quick, because I know we're running out of time, I totally embrace Pilates. I'm Pilates certified. I started to embrace it when I did a lot of gardening and found my back did not like it. So a Pilates exercise I would do, I'll show you real quick. It incorporates, Pilates is known for strengthening and flexibility, lengthening and strengthening. So you get both components when you do a Pilates exercise. And I don't care what your level, unless you can't come down onto the floor, you can even do a Pilates exercise in a chair. The roll down, okay? So you know the old-fashioned sit-ups, right? And if you people are doing this, stop it, because it doesn't work anything but your hip flexors, okay? There's no core engagement really with sit-ups. So a nice way to do a Pilates exercise, I'm going to show you modified first. So I'm going to put this little balance disc or pillow behind my back so I'm not going to come down so much. I need to be able to create a scoop, okay? Normally you do this without shoes and socks on, so you can create some lengthening. The breath is paramount. We talked about the transversus abdominis. That muscle requires forced exhalation in order to contract. So I may inhale, here's my opening. I'm going to tuck my chin, I'm going to roll down, I'm going to scoop that belly in real tight, okay? I'm going to create a hollowing. I'm going to come all the way up, and then I'm going to lengthen through my hamstrings. I'm going to come up, I'm going to scoop. So this is your really low level. Belly is tight here. I'm going to come up very slow, and then I'm going to lengthen over. My next level, same position, open up. I'm going to roll down. I'm not going to allow my shoulder blades to touch. My belly is really tight. I'm creating a scoop. I'm keeping my gaze on that belly. I'm going to come up real slow, forehead towards my thighs. And then I'm going to lengthen through my hamstrings. Okay? And then, of course, we always have our more advanced level. I'm going to roll down. Belly tight. I'm not going to allow those shoulder blades to touch. I have a scoop here. I'm going to come up slow, slow, slow. And then I'm going to lengthen through my hamstrings. Okay? So again, depending on your level of flexibility, depending on your level of core, and Ellen, if you're in there, you know, you can attest to this. She's been doing this exercise. Really, really great. That's just one Pilates, but all of the Pilates do incorporate strengthening, lengthening, body symmetry, integration. So you never are working one muscle at the same time. You're integrating a lot of muscles. So then we get our flexibility component in with our exercise program at the same time. So I'm sure I have a lot of questions. I'm going to just go back real quick and then we can. So here's our thing, what fits into your busy schedule, right? So, well, motivation is what gets you started, habit keeps you going. So for that question on how do I keep, what can I do to stay with this program? Number one thing, you've got to set realistic goals. Don't bite off more than you can chew. The smaller you start with a program, the less the best, because then you're going to be able to build upon it. Set what goals are realistic for you and reward yourself for those short-term wins. You know, go out and buy yourself a new exercise outfit or something, right? Activity trackers, very important. I am addicted to my Apple Watch, right? When I go for a walk, I'm going to put my walk program on because I just want to see my mileage. I want to see how many calories I burn. It's a feedback. It works as a feedback. You got Fitbit, you got Apple Watches. There's this new thing called Whoop. It's amazing. All of the professional golfers use it. It does not just physical tracking, it actually does physiological tracking. So it does what's called heart rate variability. I don't have time to get into that, but it's a psychological component besides a physical component. Most of your professional athletes now utilize it. The other thing about the Whoop is it's been very important with COVID because it actually assesses your respiration. So, for example, there was a professional golfer who had it on the day before he was supposed to do a tournament. He all of a sudden saw that his respiration was sky high, out of the norm. He went and got tested, and sure enough, he had COVID without any symptoms. So activity trackers are great motivation biofeedback tool. Start with what currently works. A lot of you guys are already doing something. Maybe now just add another component. Maybe you don't have to do the 30-minute walk. Maybe you can do a 15-minute walk and start adding these other components that keep your heart rate up and also work your strength and your flexibility. Mix it up. 4 o'clock is class. I do the same exercise, the same time, the same way every day. So if you're doing your own program, that's probably what you're doing. Your muscles and your body are real smart. They adapt to the loads. They're just going to shut down. They're going to say, okay, you're going to do the tricep the same way every day. Guess what? Been there, done that. It's not going to change anything. You've got to mix it up. You can work your muscle groups a number of different ways for the same muscle. Create accountability. Number one, buddy system. Hey, go for a walk with somebody. Be social. That's why group fitness is huge. People have fun. People love to get together and socialize, right? So this is probably number one right here. Don't try to do it alone, okay? Get somebody to do it with you. Set regularity, integrate within your current schedule. The 30-minute walk is not working. It's just, you know, all of a sudden you're like, I just don't have time. Well, do a 10-minute walk. Don't beat yourself up. A little bit adds up by the end of the week. 20-minute walk a day decreases your cardiovascular heart disease by 30%. Okay, that's huge. Make it fun. Listen to music. I don't do anything like walking or, you know, working on a boring elliptical unless I have music. Even the TV doesn't work for me. So I put my earbuds on, I play my favorite playlist. It gets me going. And like I said, try group fitness. There is also another mode of exercise, if you've never heard the acronym NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So for those of you, when I asked you, do you maintain an exercise program? That doesn't necessarily mean, it means maybe you're just like me. You don't stop moving. You are just on the go all the time. Your metabolic rate is going to be high just because you're not a sitter, okay? My husband here, he was diagnosed with heart disease in his 50s, stress, high, high executive position, basically was a smoker, right? So he had a quadruple bypass, came home, and this was my dog Ringo. Ringo is a Jack Russell, and if anybody knows anything about a Jack Russell, okay, they're like me. They want to move, they want to walk. So guess what my husband's job was? To walk the Jack Russell. My husband is not an exerciser. Guess what? That dog kept my husband in the best shape because they would walk. That dog would never give up. He'd walk miles and miles. So I know a lot of you are dog walkers. It's great. It's a great way to exercise, and it really feeds into that acronym of movement. Just integrate all of this now. Maintain normal bedtime routine, limit napping, limit screen time, eat well. You need half your body weight in ounces of fluids, half your body weight. Do the math, that's a lot. If you exercise, add another half your body weight to that. If you're sweating, if you live in the South, put some electrolytes in that water because you're gonna lose your electrolytes and you're not gonna feel well. Manage your stress, make sure you do anything to help that stress level, okay? Because your performance, no matter what, is gonna decline, your sleep is gonna decline, your diet is gonna decline. This is almost a number one right here. Use community, family, friends. So again, set those realistic goals, find your support team, and I'm sorry if I went over, but any questions I see?
That was fantastic, excellent. That was very insightful. We have a question here. Are you doing it with a group, or are you doing personal sessions?
I do both. I actually do, I started with 2 Zoom classes that I do. They're probably, these people have really gotten up to a pretty good level. I do show the modifications, so we all are able to get down and do mat exercises. Some of the modifications I showed you today is what we would do in the class. A lot of them are now up to that higher level where they can do things. Most of them have invested in the Bosu. It's a very, very small group that I do. These are people that I work with in New Jersey who know me for years and just wanted to continue with my program. So I do 2 Zoom classes a week on that level. I also, obviously, I live in South Carolina, and I just started doing some classes at the rec center as we're opening up the world. Most of the people who are, I'd say everybody in the class has now been vaccinated, thank God. So a lot of people are feeling more comfortable about getting out and doing a gym program. That being said, we are very spread out. We have a huge room. And for those of you who are engaging in group exercise, I would still, be mindful about keeping that distance. But yes, I also do live classes. And I do one-on-one training through Zoom. And believe it or not, it's amazing how successful. I have one client that I used to see in New Jersey. I would see him 2 times a week. By the time he would get there, he was always late, 15 minutes late. I said, John, I got 15 minutes to work with you. So we would do like 2 exercises, stretch, and he'd be on his way. Well, he has never worked harder in a Zoom program. I can still pretty much evaluate what your dysfunctions are, what your needs are, what your goals are. These are the tools I use, really. We don't need anything more than that. And he has empowered, his golf game has improved. He had rotator cuff problems. I knew for sure he had a tear. No pain, no night pain. We've addressed that. So Zoom works really well for training too, okay? So I do a little bit of everything. I am retired. So part of my initiative was not to take on a lot of clients, but Frank and I had talked about maybe doing some kind of collaboration, and we can talk a little bit more about that, Frank.
Okay, great, wonderful.
And like I said, if anybody wants any information that I covered, if it's not on the outline and you need any more, please, you have my email, send me an email. If I get 100 emails, well, that's going to be tough, but I will try to respond to you and answer any of your questions. Okay?
Good. So do you want me to put your email address in the chat? Because how do they have your email?
Oh, it's right here, the last slide.
Oh, okay, 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 okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So if you're watching this and you want to jot down my email, fine, jot it down. Okay.
Yep.
And this way, if you have any more questions, because my biggest problem is to stay on task with lectures, because I'm, as you can see, I'm very passionate about this. I love when I see people make improvements, and it doesn't matter what your level. I'm treating a guy, real quick story. I just started with him who post-stroke, and all he wanted to do, he's 85 years old, and he's like, I just don't want to wind up in a nursing home, Natalie.
Yeah.
Well, this guy is doing unbelievably well. He's not using assistive device. I see him twice a week. There's his realistic goal. I don't want to be in a nursing home. So it doesn't matter your level of fitness. My first patient, when I worked in therapy, he was like 95. And he said, I just want to be able to balance. And believe it or not, at 95, we improved his balance. So number one, it's never too late to start an exercise program. Number two, it doesn't matter what your comorbidity. You've got a cranky shoulder, you got a cranky knee, you just need the appropriate training to really offset that and work around these musculoskeletal problems. So it's anybody can embrace exercise, and there's so many modes of way to exercise. Like I said, if I can empower you with anything, it's really through movement. Okay.
I have a few more questions. People ask if you have a website. I don't think you have a website, right?
I don't, no. A lot of this, I actually, here, I give out cards. I have flyers for post-rehab training, I call it, but I've never really done that because when I was working, before I retired, I was working probably, 60 hours a week. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm over the top. So I'm just starting to get my foot back in the door and picking up clients. So I have not established a website, no.
Well, another question, Tai Chi, is Tai Chi beneficial?
Tai Chi is wonderful. Tai Chi is wonderful. Tai Chi goes under the relaxation phase, but the balance phase is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I have a woman who just started to take my live class. She's been taking the Tai Chi at the rec center. She started to take, and her balance is phenomenal. And I said, because we do the discs, and we do a lot of, and it's all due to Tai Chi. Tai Chi is wonderful, yes. But it doesn't really work your cardiovascular system.
Okay, let's see. How do you motivate yourself in a nutshell? From benefits, how do you get yourself focused each day? That's one question.
Okay, me personally, or how do they get themselves motivated? How does she want to get motivated?
How do you motivate yourself, I guess?
Me personally?
I guess so, yeah. I'm not sure.
Like I said, I get a lot of rewards. I'm just like a lot of people. The 2 morning classes that I have to teach, they start at 8:30. It's dark outside. You think I feel like getting out of bed? I'm retired. It's 7 o'clock. It's dark. No, it's hard. It's hard and it's work. But once you get going and you do it, the reward is great. You feel better. And that's what keeps me going. Okay. My personally is, then I'm empowering and helping everybody else. But when I do my own workout through COVID, I used to take yoga classes. I used to, so I do it all here. This is it. It's hard for me to get in this room and do my own workout, but I just say, you know what? It's just really, what is it? 30 minutes to an hour out of your day. I mean, it's what, 24-hour day. You can't find 1 hour to fit that in. And when you do, and the rewards you start to gain, it's just a matter of making, like I said, you have to make it a habit. You have to make it a habit.
Great, great. Natalie, that was absolute spectacular. That was really a fantastic presentation.
I so prefer a live audience because I really love to interact. I really like to be more interactive. This is, I feel like I'm just giving it to you, Frank, but I know everybody out there is paying attention and listening. And
yeah.
I hope you can all at least remember, the key is small increments. Don't go trying to do 100 million things. Find maybe a professional, find a buddy. Socialize. I mean, that is how you're going to stick to these programs. Okay.
Yeah.
You can't always do everything alone. All right.
Right, right. I see a lot of thank yous, a lot of everyone is grateful for this presentation. Fantastic, and I'm hoping we can collaborate together. Maybe we can put something together for our challenge also.
That would be great. That would be great.
That would be fantastic,
Okay,
because I know everyone is screaming for just a little exercise, you know, the 15 to 30 minutes exercise. That's what everyone's looking for. Wonderful.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much for inviting me on. I appreciate it. And like I said, I really applaud all of you. And don't beat yourselves up if you don't maintain this diet and you go off. You have a piece of chicken, you have a martini one night, okay? You know, you've got to, it's all moderation and prevention.
Yep.
That's the key.
That's right.
Okay.
Wonderful,
Thank you so much.
wonderful.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Natalie.
All right. Have a good evening.
Same to you. Thank you. Okay, I would like to thank everyone else. Thank you for joining me tonight. I think this was a fantastic presentation by Natalie. We are thinking of working together in one part or another in a challenge or so. Hopefully we can get Natalie in so that the challenge is more attractive to you. And if you want to get in contact with Natalie, you have the email here in the contact list. Feel free to reach out to her, and she's absolutely magnificent, or what would you say? She's excellent. She's a great, great fitness professional. Thank you so much. And I will upload this video as soon as I can, and you will have access to it in the membership, or you can access it probably on YouTube probably tomorrow, or on Facebook. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night. And remember, be safe and think plant-based.